welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad that you're joining us again for our show this week. Like I've said before, we're very happy there are people like you who care and are interested in what's happening in our cities. Because that's important for good government, that the residents of the city and the mayors and the city council are all in communication with each other, that they take time to let each other know what they'd like to see happen, but also we encourage you, be sure to let your city council and your mayors know when something pleases you as well as when you'd like to see change. Now, if you haven't watched our show before, each week we'll have somebody on from one of the 9 cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area to update us on what are the current issues and what's happening in the city so that you can follow along and know before they vote on things what's coming up. But now we're in the middle of election season. An election season that has a lot of people interested, but sometimes the city council races don't get quite as much attention. So we're spending September and October bringing city council candidates and mayor candidates to you so that you can learn about issues, you can learn about them, and help prepare you to vote. Because the city council election is the one that affects you most closely on issues that are going to directly affect you. So we encourage you to gather information. And we've got the mayors of Robbinsdale and Crystal on tonight. So if you're from one of those 2 cities, be sure to take down their name, their email, their phone number, and then be in contact with them, particularly on issues that concern you. So I'm very happy to welcome tonight Regan Murphy, who's the mayor of Robbinsdale, and Jim Adams, the mayor of Crystal. We're glad to have you joining us again.
Thank you. Thanks, Juanita.
And you already know that I'm going to have you introduce yourself.
Perfect.
Because that makes it a little easier on me, right?
Right.
But that you can let our wider audience know a little bit about yourself, your background in Robbinsdale, but then for people in Robbinsdale, why your background has prepared you to be the mayor.
Sure. Do I get to go first?
You get to go first.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. My name's Regan Murphy. Born and raised in Robbinsdale, went to Robbinsdale schools. My folks grew up in Robbinsdale as well. I moved back to Robbinsdale in 2005 to raise my kids in Robbinsdale. And at that time, I decided to give back to a city that I felt gave a lot to me, and got involved in the Park and Rec Commission and the Planning Commission, and also helped found the Heart of Robbinsdale Community Foundation. And shortly after that, I decided to run for mayor. So 4 years ago, I ran for mayor and I won.
Right.
And it's been a very interesting 4 years. Been a lot of challenges, and which I've been happy to be involved in and help, Robbinsdale deal with those challenges and protect our interests. But we've had a lot of successes, a lot of great changes, a lot of positive momentum. And so I'm here tonight because I'm up for re-election. I'm gonna run for another 4 years. And but I'm a product of Robbinsdale schools and graduated from the University of Minnesota, and I work in sales for a medical device company. That's my full-time job. And my big goal is to keep Robbinsdale a great place to live. It's really simple as that. So look forward to tonight and talking about some of the issues.
Right. Now, I gave a number of issues plus saying pick some of your own so that you would have a little time to think ahead of time of what you want to say and what you want people to know about the issue. So let's start off with a first issue, not necessarily the most important, but one that you'd like to share with our audience, but particularly with Robbinsdale people, to let them know where you're coming from and what you'd like to see happen.
Sure. I guess I'd start off with safety, because everybody deserves to have a safe place to live.
Right.
Safe place to walk, and safe neighborhood. And it's, of all the things I get contacted about the last 4 years, a majority have to do with safety in neighborhoods.
Right.
And it's a challenge in any community.
Oh, definitely.
And so I want to continue to be proactive and also innovative. And it comes down to the city council and how we work with the police department, and more importantly, how city council, the police department, and how we work with the community, especially in light of the things that have happened nationally and regionally.
Oh, right.
Right. So, we look at it from a budget standpoint because there's certain technologies and resources that we can employ, to combat crime and various things like that. And so, My goal is to, immerse myself as much as I can and be available to residents who have issues in their neighborhood. And it's as simple as, neighborhood meetings, which we do quite often, and being accessible to just listen, because a lot of times the residents just want to share their concerns, they want to be heard,
right,
and then, act on those concerns. And having the relationship with the department can help that. If there's a concern in a certain neighborhood, that they can then deal with that. So safety is a concern, and also as the city changes, for example, with light rail transit that potentially coming through Robbinsdale, that's going to change the landscape and various things. So just thinking ahead too, as the city changes, how are we going to prepare ourselves to deal with those types of things? So safety is a big priority, and I'm racing. I'm a resident too.
Oh, right.
And I've got 3 kids, and my mom lives in Robbinsdale. I got a lot of friends and family. And I want people to feel safe, and it's something that everybody deserves. So it's something that I'm very cognizant of and will continue to work on.
Are there any new areas that your council has been working on in regards to safety over this period of time?
I think technology is probably the biggest area, and it's challenging because of the cost of technology. And Robbinsdale's a small city, and the resources, we don't necessarily have the personnel to deal with things such as, let's just take body cameras, for example, or cameras in general. Taping and holding that data, and how long do we hold that data? Who's going to review the data? If a resident wants to look at that data, there's state laws and statutes that come into play too. So that's just one example I think that we look at is deploying technology, because it's very expensive. The largest part of our budget in Robbinsdale, and I think for a lot of cities, is police and fire.
Oh, definitely.
And so it's not always as easy as much as we want to just to add a police officer. So if we can employ technology, just say a camera that can help monitor certain areas. Sure. We definitely want to look at that. So I would say technology is something that we're very focused on.
Okay, let's shift to another issue that we can share with the people in Robbinsdale.
Sure. Another issue that
you wanted.
Sure. I guess the other thing would be, I say economic development. That was something 4 years that I was really focused on. And it's kind of a broad term.
Right.
But my whole goal was to be more proactive instead of sitting back and waiting for vacancies or vacant buildings to be occupied.
Right.
Wanted to be a little more proactive, and we did that. We've been very focused on reaching out to developers and creating relationships with entrepreneurs, and also finding out what businesses Robbinsdale residents want.
Right.
And that's been critical. And then also looking at targeted areas that are ripe for redevelopment, and then getting involved in, if we can, acquiring properties so we can have a little more control on what goes in there.
Sure.
One example is the new brewery that we have in Robbinsdale.
Oh, right.
We met with developers and identified different areas in Robbinsdale that were important to us, and certainly downtown, our authentic downtown district, is a big asset for us.
Oh, definitely.
And so the TCF was a building downtown. It became vacant. They left. As we all know, banks are no longer in big spaces. Internet banking, but we knew that was a critical space on downtown. So we spent some time, decided we acquired that building, and then that then allowed us to go out and look for businesses that were interested. And we were able to connect to a brewer that was looking to start a brewery, and about a year later they were construction and they're opening. It's super successful, and it's been great for downtown because it's had a positive effect on our other businesses. Just a quick story is Pig Ate My Pizza, the pizza place.
Oh, right.
They, one of the gentlemen that works there said about 300 pounds of meat that they would prepare a week.
Right.
Once Wicked Wart opened up, it was over 1,000 pounds.
Ooh,
a week.
that was a good deal.
Pretty significant. Yeah. So it's been great for downtown to do that, and part of that was us being proactive. Also in ordinances, we created an ordinance to be a little more friendly to certain businesses. So that's what we've done, and I want to continue that, but more focused on our downtown district and expanding that. So we've got 1 or 2 blocks that are pretty prominent and well known. And so we're just kind of thinking down down the line towards 36th Avenue in France, you know, creating another bookend to that downtown and working within. So that's kind of the goal, and you know, a lot of people have been really happy, and it's been a new energy. You know, downtown started to come alive a little bit, and people are pretty excited about it, and it's fun to see. And it's great now to have businesses, you know, contacting us and looking for space. So it's kind of been a nice domino effect. So that's something else that I think we'll continue to focus on.
And it does take there's a lot of behind the scenes work that has to happen from the city, right?
There is, because with every, you know, idea that we might get, it doesn't necessarily come to fruition. And so we might talk to a lot of different businesses or entrepreneurs, and you know, some ideas might go down the road a little bit, but there might be an issue with financing or whatever it might be. So you have to try, though.
Right.
And that's kind of been our goal is you know, if we don't do anything, then we can't really expect anything to happen. And we've, you know, when we go out to various events, we try to be a little more proactive too in introducing ourselves and telling people about Robbinsdale and what we have going on. And so the big part of it is, you know, trying to change the image of Robbinsdale, and that's been over the course of a couple of years. It's happening, and you know, people think a lot different of Robbinsdale than they did 10 years ago. Right. And so that's been very helpful too.
And then is there some small issue you want to mention to the voters out there?
You know, one other thing that comes up a lot is light rail, which it's not a small issue.
No.
It's going to be, for Robbinsdale and our neighbors in Crystal, it's going to be a significant change. Probably the most significant change since, say, maybe Highway 100 getting paved. So, you know, we're at the 30%, you know, kind of phase of the development and of the progress, and there's a long way to go, and there's finance things that have to work out too. But we really want to make sure, you know, we get one shot at this, and we want to make sure that we do it right, and are looking at both safety and that what development comes about is done right to, you know, protect our interests, our downtown, and also our neighborhood and neighborhood feel. So it's going to be an interesting process over the next couple of years, because it's moving fast too. So that's a hot topic, and you know, we're all on the city council, we're all on various committees and different aspects, and we're involved heavily.
Well, and there's lots of opportunities if people want to take it to follow that process along at a lot of open meetings where the whole process, they're seeking out people's information, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's certainly open houses that are open to the general public, but there's other committees too that are you know, comprised of you know, citizens, so you get input that way. And then the Blue Line, the office has done a good job of getting the different community events and different reach, you know, reaching out to the community. So there's a lot of ways for people to get information, but also to be involved and give information and feedback.
Okay, maybe you want to talk a little bit about things that you've learned from people as you're door knocking and meeting the public as you're running for office, or maybe it's walking for office, right?
Right. Well, sometimes you're running, and sometimes you're walking, and it's always busy. But you know, people, whenever you interact with them, they always have an issue that's, no matter what it is, it's very important to them.
Right.
And the cool thing about being mayor is, you know, you've got an opportunity to help people more so than there's less red tape, and so it can be as simple as, you know, a neighbor, the lawn is too long, or garbage in the neighborhood, or you know, loud music, or all those little things. But it's important to people, and they have you know, a certain way of life that they want to live, and they want to be comfortable. And sometimes we can't help, but a lot of times we can. And so that's one of the things I've enjoyed is being able to help people in Robbinsdale enjoy, you know, where they live and be proud of, you know, where they live. So it's interesting, the little things that you hear from people and the experiences they have, and there's just so many stories. I know Jim has heard them too, and it's pretty cool to get to know what's important to people, and you know, really the the heartbeat of the city.
Oh, right, right. Yeah, and without doing some of that, you're not going to learn that sitting back in your office or whatever.
No.
You have to get out and interact with people.
No, and and I don't even have an office. That's the thing. It's which is interesting, but it's important to be accessible. And
right.
You know, when I ran 4 years ago, that was really important to me, that people knew that you can call me at home. You can come to my house. You can approach me wherever I am. And I think people, they're surprised, but they love being able to just come up and say, hey, I've got this problem, and not.
To encourage more people to let their city council and mayors know is important.
Because I'll be honest, the decisions that we make are based on, you know, the feedback we get from residents, their concerns and their questions that comes from residents.
Okay. Now, let you tell people out in Robbinsdale why they should check your name off when they go into the ballot box on the 8th of November.
Sure. No, thanks, Juanita. First and foremost, you know, my track record over the last 4 years, I'll ask the question, do you think Robbinsdale is in a better position than it was before? Do you feel like it's thriving? Are you happy where you live? And hopefully that answer is yes, because I've worked very hard over the last 4 years, not only, you know, daily or weekly, meeting with residents, answering questions, trying to do my best to make Robbinsdale a great place to live. We've got great momentum, a new energy. I feel Robbinsdale is thriving, and I want to build on that momentum. So I ask for your vote in this election, November 8th, so I can continue that momentum. And I always tell you, I'm just a kid from Robbinsdale that wants to keep Robbinsdale a great place to live. And that's my motivation. It's to be honest, it's as simple as that. And so I ask for your vote and your confidence, and let's keep making Robbinsdale a great place to live.
And now we'll move on to Jim Adams, running for mayor of Crystal, or running for re-election as mayor of Crystal. So why don't you introduce yourself out to our wider audience, but especially to people in Crystal.
All right. My name is Jim Adams. I'm the mayor of Crystal. And a little bit about my background. My background is financial accounting, business administration. And I've spent a good stint fighting fires. I'm a retired firefighter from the city of Crystal through West Metro Fire Department. And what I do for full-time work, my wife and I operate our own construction company. It's remodeling. We also run some homes for people in transition. We've got various transition houses. Half of them are people who come from homelessness. A lot of them come from Simpson House, and then the other half are sober homes, and these are people who are in active recovery. So that takes up an awful lot of our time as far as what we do for a living. Beyond that, I'm mayor of Crystal. So that's kind of what I do, and I think that's less than I used to do, but it's still a lot. So.
Well, let's start with issues that you'd like to share your thoughts with the voters in Crystal. Let's start with whatever the first one is. Doesn't have to be the most important, but one that you'd like to talk about.
You know, my strength is going to be financial. And I'll talk about that probably the most.
Sure.
Luckily, I have some people on the council that have strengths other than financial, so I do lean on them heavily for that. But for the finance side of it, we do have, we try to be fiscally responsible. There are some things very specific that we're doing in Crystal to change things up. In the past, we've done a lot of assessments, and we're trying to get away from that. When we have a tax levy that is going to be charged to our residents, we want it to include as much as possible. We want it to include as many streets as possible in routine maintenance. The levy, we want to get as much as possible on it. What we've done in the past is we've moved some routine maintenance onto assessments, which if you keep the levy level and add routine maintenance to that, it's really a tax increase. So what we've done is we've brought that back onto the levy. So people from Crystal are going to see just a little bit of increase in their levy this year, but they're not going to have that surprise bill for routine maintenance. And you know, that's something that's very common. You know, for some cities, it's illegal to put maintenance on assessments. It depends on what type of city you are.
Right.
And of course, for St. Paul, we saw that they were putting some maintenance on, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they got denied that, so they have to put that back on their levy. So really, when it comes to property tax levies, we want as much as possible on there, because when we do assessments, it's one of the most costly ways to do a project, because it includes the management of the assessments. It's like a whole different way of collecting taxes. Plus, you have usually behind it some type of bonding, some type of interest that goes to the banks. You know, it's like using the credit card. So when you actually have dollars going to that from the citizens, it costs them more. But if it's on the levy, it's the most efficient way, because it buys planning, it buys bricks, mortar, that sort of thing. And every dollar is used to its fullest, and it's not going straight to the banks. So that's what we're working on. We're trying to decrease some of our debt. We have decreased it. In fact, our plan is to eliminate debt. But we are currently going through street reconstruction, and we are about to start our last phase of street reconstruction next year. And that's going to be probably the last bond we levy for many years. So we're replacing debt with long-term planning.
So you made a significant change.
Oh yeah, we're making significant change. When we go to do complete reconstruction of roads, we're going to hopefully have that all planned out, all saved up for. We have some additional buildings. We're doing needs assessments for future buildings, and those buildings are not going to be something we're going to want to bond for. We want to plan for it over a period of time, have the cash ready for it, so every dollar again goes towards the building itself. And you know, the perfect example, in our city, we did the Public Works facility, $13.5 million project. The council, we argued for 2 years on how we were going to do it, and they wanted to bond it for it. And if we bonded for that, that would have been $6 million in interest. And the project would have ended up costing $20 million. So that's over $1 million added to the levy each year, just to service the debt for the Public Works facility. Well, we had a fund where we had planned to replace buildings. We used that money, and we were a couple $million short. We figured out how we could borrow from other funds of our own, and we were able to do it. We saved all that money and paid cash for the Public Works facility. So we're trying to do things more like that, where we got the long-term planning in place to account for what we need to accomplish. And our reserves are strong. We still have to do some bonding for the roads. And when we do bonding, Moody's always takes a look at what our credit rating is. Our credit rating is still very strong, and we have not reduced the amount of reserves. In fact, they say we have excess reserves. What we used on that project was specifically for building replacement. And it's just a beautiful thing when long-term planning falls into place and it's used for what it's supposed to be. And that's kind of the model we're going for in the finance world. So,
well, now another issue that you'd like to share with especially the people of Crystal.
Wow. This goes into how we are as government, how we are seen as government, and how we treat people, how we are approachable via staff or council itself. We're doing everything we can to be approachable. I find most people who call me and try to approach me, they're very thoughtful. You know, they don't come with something they haven't thought through. And they're very respectful with my time, and they have a point. So I listen to them very carefully. And kind of like Regan said, it's a conduit that kind of, if there's something really not right, it should come to us, and we can do something a little bit more quickly. So that's a great thing. And how we kind of do that, it's a couple levels. We're adding plain language in some of our letters. So when we have to communicate, it's not a bunch of codes and sections of ordinances. It's plain language. We may reference the code, or we may have the code written out also, but there's going to be a plain language explanation of what we're doing. So people look at something and go, a lot of words that I don't understand, and really that's a great effort. Beyond that, we're trying to simplify our ordinances. Not necessarily plain language in our ordinances, but we are going through. We have a task force, that that's going through all of our ordinances. There's citizen volunteers. They are working their tails off going through all of our ordinances.
Right,
there were
right.
more ordinances than we had citizens. And we're going to make things that used to be illegal legal again.
Right.
So you're going to be able to dry your clothes on a clothesline, and that pool table in the community center is going to be legal again. You know, because there's a
good they go way
ordinance that
back,
said
yeah.
it can't be so
Right,
many feet from
right.
a public building. Well, it's in a public building, so
Yeah.
we're going to make that legal. But there's other things too. When we have different ordinances with alcohol, sale of alcohol, or bars, you know, they come in piecemeal as the laws change.
Right.
And we try to make ordinances at each step of the way. Well, now we have this conglomerate of rules that are just very complicated.
Right.
And we're going back and simplifying that, rewriting the whole thing and making some of the fees more congruent, and just trying to make everything
Right.
easier. Because what we want to do, we want to govern from a place of updated ordinances, updated rules. So that's a big deal for us, just making us a little more friendly from all perspectives.
Oh. Well, now I want to give you plenty of time to tell the people out in Crystal why, when they go vote for mayor on the 8th of November, why should they check your name?
I bring experience in finances. We've accomplished an awful lot in terms of financial responsibility and changing the way we do things in a very structural manner, so that long term we're going to see tax cuts. Long term, the money that we spend, that we collect from citizens, is going to be spent in the most efficient way possible. That's the finance side of it. The other side of it is we are changing how approachable we are, and we are becoming more servants of our citizens. We are doing government from a citizen's perspective. These are things that we continue to improve on, and we will continue to improve on. It feels like we've just got started. We've got a new council for the most part in the last 2 years, and we're seeing a lot of new initiatives coming, not only from myself, but from them as well. So I'm looking very forward to continuing with the efforts that have happened thus far.
Well, I want to thank both of you for sharing your time and your experiences with our audience, and wish you both good luck as you're doing your campaigning. And we'll want you to be sure to contact your mayors and your city council people that are running for election if you've got any questions about what they're working and running on, so that you'll be a prepared voter. You'll be ready to vote, and you can make an intelligent vote for city council. We encourage all of you to take the time to do that. And be sure to check if you're registered to vote. You can do it easily on the Minnesota Secretary of State site, and you can also register there. You can register up at your city hall too, because they'll be able to register with you too. So we'll ask you to be prepared at the city level as well at the state and federal level, because it is the part of government that's going to be closest to you and have the most direct impact. We're glad that you're with us, and we'll hope you'll join us again next week for the last of our city council candidates. Bye.